this film, guys, we shall be taking a look at the 5th installment in the Insidious franchise, Insidious the Red Door. So without further ado, let's get into today's review. Let's get into it. So I thought then that this movie brought back everything that we wanted and what we expected it to do back into the Insidious franchise after having two semi-crap movies where they haven't really done what we wanted them to do, which was further the story. Even though the Lambert family had been completed on the second movie, I feel that they returned to it in a great way in this particular movie and brought back what the franchise lost in the last two movies and helped cement itself along those two and not go off path, not go away from what made Insidious good in the first place. I really liked how this movie starts out as well. I think it opens the stall out in the first 10 minutes and shows us, after the occurrences, how much of the family we have missed. How much of the stuff that we didn't expect to happen, happened. In several years, a lot can happen, and that's what this first 10 minutes shows. As in the first few minutes, we see obviously the funeral of Josh's mother. So obviously she's died very recently, and that the family are going to be very shook by that. As well, we're learning that the family is very segmented due to the fact that Josh is no longer with Renee, and his relationship with his kids is no longer as strong as it used to be, showing that a lot of things have affected Josh along this few years after the occurrences, and it doesn't help neither that Josh nor Dalton can remember what happened in that year that's so called like a blur. Obviously Dalton just remembers being in a coma, although that's what his family are telling him, and Josh doesn't really remember a thing and feels like it's a big plot hole in his head that is completely missing. And that's the stall set out for the first 10 minutes. And it's just such a great 10 minutes, that thing of going, you're getting a lot of information at once, great opening to the movie. And obviously we're seeing Josh trying to get a relationship going with his son. We've got that going on. We've got quite a lot of things just building and building up. It's like this first 10-20 minutes is like the foundation for the entire film. That's what the movie sits on top of. That 10-20 minutes foundation that it's building of that plot gap of that. And then on top of that, they're building on top of that as we're seeing other stuff happen as well. And that's what's amazing, especially in that middle chunk. And I love how they spend so much time on the building process rather than just going, right, let's just start off really, really strong and then weaken out for the rest of the movie. Like I saw The Boogeyman recently, and that did the exact same as that. It started off promising and then just faded out as the movie went on. Whereas this one lit a fire and continuously made it hotter and hotter and hotter and started building on top of what they had. As in that middle chunk, I love how they went into detail about this. They went into detail about Josh's father coming into the picture as a possible schizophrenic who also can astro project into this other reality. And it shows, and that little thing was probably the biggest thing in that big chunk that I'm on about. And he being revealed as this astro projector really helped give us an idea of how Josh got his powers and how Dalton got his powers to astro project as well. Those two things were really cool. I think it was cool how his dad actually gave him the hints to go and help find Dalton because he knew he was in danger. And obviously with Patrick Wilson's character, we knew that he couldn't figure out what this was, that he was astral projecting. He didn't know what that was anymore. Same with Dalton. He was just confused. He left his outer body and he had to learn it all again because obviously all that stuff as a kid and from the first and second movies got wiped out at the end of the second film. So now there's learning from scratch, and it is amazing to follow the two on this journey, these two separate journeys of encountering all these otherworldly beings and their encounters with these demonic presences, in which I think were all really quite scary, building you up, because they're not the main fish. You know they're not the biggest fish in the pond. And we get introduced to the biggest fish in the pond when it strangles Chris in a very suspenseful moment when Dalton goes traveling and going on this task to try to talk to one of the ghostly figures he saw earlier to try to get a better picture of what is happening with him, and wanted to know what he meant by close the door. And I think all those little things, those little building up scenes of feeling like it's building up to something was great. I think not enough horror movies do that now, of just spending a good chunk of time building on that, because that honestly lays the foundation and hypes you up for what is going to come. What is the big outcome in this movie? What is the story you're trying to tell? That chunk got it down to a fucking T, and I loved it. Also, with Dalton, he paints a red door, symbolizing the door that we've seen in the past 2, 3, even 4 films. I think the red door is ever present every time they astral project in some way or shape or form in all 4 of those films. And to visit back at the red door and have a movie based around the red door and Dalton paint something around the red door, you knew this was the sort of like a heart of the film. And when he painted that red door and part of his what looked like his father with a hammer, I think that was very interesting. That is what's grabbing me to keep watching till the very fucking end. That is asses in seats stuff, that is. Hooked to the screen, loved it. That part just made you think, does Dalton now think, here's the reason why all this is sort of made up, because he's going on his own little investigation in this movie into finding out why he can't remember a lot of stuff. And now that he thinks that maybe that his dad was the reason why he can't remember so much of his life. Maybe he was involved in that. Maybe he assaulted the family. Maybe there was something dark, some dark secrets within the family that Dalton is not present to or was wiped off, so that he could not remember some traumatic experiences in his life. That's what really struck you as like thinking, is he going to turn on his father? Maybe that was an outcome. But then obviously it all gets cleared up when Dalton obviously meets his father in the things near the end. But obviously this part of the movie really puts you on a little bit of a knife's edge, thinking it could go either way. And I think the ending then becomes more suspenseful and builds up a bigger picture where the movie could go. Moving on to the ending then. I think that the ending was good in part, but I don't think they perfected it. I'll tell you why at the end, which is that there was some amazing, great stuff that happened here. They had the possession of Dalton in there, where the demons took over his body for a small chunk of time, and you thought maybe they're going to do a bit of impact in that body, which would have been great to see. Maybe if they'd extended that part maybe a little bit longer, seeing maybe kill either Chris or somebody else in that apartment would have been really, really cool, and would have shown how threatful this being would have been in his body. But not only that, we see Dalton be saved by his father, and his father tried to sacrifice himself by shutting the door, keeping the devil-looking demon out of the way so that Dalton could return back to his body. However, that scene of Dalton's father keeping the door sounds dramatic, but it wasn't. And that's what annoys me about this, because they didn't drag it out enough. They didn't fill me with any sorts of emotion whatsoever. I didn't feel anything for Patrick Wilson's character, and that's the problem with this ending, because they didn't drag it out. They forced it. They forced the ending too quick, in which consequently leads to the ending feeling rushed, flat, a little bit for what they built up, very like underwhelming. And I think that could have been done and demonstrated a lot better if they'd have spent a lot more time on it. I felt that the cameos of Elise, Specs and Tucker were good. I like them. However, Elise should have had a bigger role. This might be a little bit picky, but I think that she should have maybe had a bigger role, because she is the main character in practically all of the movies, really. And she is sort of the running theme all the way through. Even in the so-called poor sequel, she ran with it. And maybe they turned around and said, maybe the Elise story is completed now, so now she can take a backseat and just be cameos here and there. But it would have been nice to see her in a large role in some way, shape or form. I also don't think that this movie is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, due to the fact that it does something very annoying, which is relies upon jump scares to make it through the film, in which might not bother some people, it might bother people. I'm sort of in the middle. I don't mind a jump scare here and there, 1 or 2, but they had about maybe 3, maybe 4 in this particular movie. And when you're relying upon that to make me scared, is just a cheap way of making you scared, just going, bosh, no, you know what I mean? It's a very cheap way of making somebody scared. Instead of making the scariest looking villain possible, they channel the horror side of things through just things popping up on the screen really, really quickly, in which is just cheap. I don't really like it, but if you use it once or twice here and there, it's fine, but I think this one used it a little bit too much for me. Finally then, I thought that the actors and actresses were great, as we saw the likes of Ty Simpkins, Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne, Sinclair Daniel, Andrew Astor, Hiam Abbass, Juliana Davies, Steve Coulter, Pete Dager, David Cole, Leigh Whannell, Angus Sampson and Lin Shaye, which were all exceptional. So to summarise the Red Door Insidious movie, I think that this Insidious movie was solid, added to the franchise in a different dynamic, and looks like it has finished the franchise off. Even though the ending wasn't what I expected, it delivered in some way, shape or form. Hence why I've rated this movie a 7.4 out of 10 and a world-class film. So let me know down in the comments down below what your thoughts are. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it amazing? Is it terrible? Let me know down in the comments down below, please. Also, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Laters.